part two of the race recap from the Xterra World Championships. So now on to the race. So the first run was a 3K run, or about 1.5 miles.
1.8.
1.8 miles. Give us your recap of that run and how much fun that was.
Yeah. So, you know, heading into that race, I did have the experience from the Ogden or Snow Basin Heat, which was the U.S. Championship. I knew how hard and how it sucked to start the race with uphill run.
Oh, gosh.
It's just like the worst way to start a race. So I wanted to make sure that I don't overdo it, but at the same time, you cannot just take it easy. And my age group started, or my wave was the third wave, so I knew that we'll be catching up some of the slower people.
Can we just talk about how great it is at these Xterra races, at what time they start?
Oh, awesome. We started at 9 o'clock.
My race started at 9:30.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it should be. Like, what's the reason for needing to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Right.
We had so much time in the morning. We're like, what do we do?
Yeah. No, that was perfect.
All right. So you started at like 9:03, 9:04 or something. So you ran up the hill,
and
it
started on the grass field, or the the golf course, or whatever it was. And right before the race, I noted that there was the guy who beat me in the snow basin and who won our age group for the national championship, and I was second behind him back there. So I knew that he was going to be straight. So I sort of kind of like wanted to keep an eye on him, and I started right behind him basically, and of course I didn't know anybody else there. You just don't know, because there are some people from different parts of the world. But to my surprise, the first I don't know, half a mile of that run, like everybody were running so fast, and I was like, wow, I guess that's because it's a world championship and everybody's so strong. But then all of a sudden I find myself and like the same three people that we kind of ran away from the group in the snow basin in Utah. The same three people, our friend Henry and the guy who won my age group. They both live in Vail, Colorado, high altitude, super strong athletes. And we were gone from our group and running and catching the people ahead of us. So before there was that first climb, then there was a steep downhill where my competitor just ran away from me, because he can run so fast downhill. I just don't know how he can even do that. And then it was another super steep climb before we hit the last part of the trail. So this whole thing was on the pavement, and then the last like 0.8 mile was off-road, kind of technical, but not too bad. It wasn't as slippery. But at that time, it was you are just going through the masses of people from the previous age groups, and so it was kind of impossible to really just run and holding your own pace and effort. We just have to kind of realize that I'm not really going anywhere because I'm stuck here for now, and so there will be other opportunities.
And you ran a little on the beach to finish that first run.
Yeah, so they still took us on the beach, and just it's kind of like running in the deep snow. Just there's no firmness in the surface, and just kind of diving in it, and can be pretty difficult. But I guess that's what Xterra is about.
Yeah. And I would say that you had a better transition this time around. You're getting better at your transitions.
Well, I also decided to bring my other mountain bike shoes that are a little bit looser. And so I really like my normal mountain bike shoes, which they are super strong and firm and really keep your feet stable.
What style are they?
Well, it's just a bond. Both of my shoes are bond, but the ones that I normally use for mountain biking are just more of the high end, but it's also it's a bit more difficult to get in, because the shoe it's kind of more closed and it's a bit hard. So I took those less expensive ones, which they are a little bit looser, and it was easier for me to get into the shoe. So it was fairly quick.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the bike course. So first of all, when I was in our friend's room, kind of watching the race where you were warming up and the pros were going, and the announcer was saying, this is such a fast course. The pros are in here like 4 minutes faster, because the pros started an hour earlier to get them off the course so they could start their second loop by the time they started. And the oh my gosh, this course is going to turn out to be a record setting day so fast today. So now you guys are on the course and the weather was good. I thought it was going to be a great day. And then somewhere in there, it started sprinkling as predicted. And then it never stopped.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the beginning or the bike course, maybe the first loop.
Yeah, so we started again on that kind of like the golf cart path, which was paved, but it's just a brutal start because you go straight uphill, and then there was this segment where it was definitely the steepest gradient I've ever seen on the road, and it was definitely over 30% because we have one climb that we did before here, which hits close to 30, and this was way steeper. I was on my easiest gear on the mountain bike, which is 34 tuning in the front and 52 in the back, and I was just torquing it and barely moving. And so that's the way to kind of smash your legs before the trails even start.
Yeah.
But then we hit the trails, and again we are kind of like with other people. So I expected that it'll be the first loop will be kind of a lot of traffic to navigate through, and it's a single track for pretty much the whole loop, so there's not too many opportunities to really pass safely. You have to kind of hope that when you say that hey, passing, that somebody will let you go, but not everybody will do that. And so I kind of expected it, and I made a peace with myself before the race that I will not get upset or angry, and just it is what it is, and I'll just deal with it. So but the condition started to be kind of okay. It was a little bit it was sort of between that first day experience and it's about the same, I would say. So it started to be kind of slippery but really sticky. So now even those tires that I had on, they quickly filled up with that mud. And because of the layout of the course, you go pretty high in the altitude up to the mountain. So each segment of the course felt like it was different track. Somewhere it would be a little bit drier and you can get some traction, and somewhere it was just slipping left and right. And and I see people like falling off right in front of me, and I have several close calls, and I just wanted to be as smooth and safe, so because I knew that crashing it's not fast, so try to go a little faster and crash a little bit slower. So I think I was doing a pretty good job, but then I still you can't avoid some of those slippage. So there was few tumbles, but just quickly just kind of sliding off the bike, picking myself up and keep on rolling. But at one point of that course, it was in the second half of that first loop, the tires just filled up with that crap. And at that point, so much.
It was raining.
Yeah, it was raining. It was raining, and it was so slippery and so muddy, and the tires just picked, like even those mud tires, they just filled up. And now I was dealing with the fact that the wheels would not almost turn because there was the mud filled up the space between the the tire and the front fork, or the tire and the frame in the back, and it was just barely moving. And I tried to, one point I have to stop and try to push it with my with my hand, just like get the mud out, and it was not really working. It was just like it was that really kind of sticky and firm peanut butter mud. So then another time, as all of a sudden my driller stopped working, and I feel like the chain is skipping just because it filled up in so much mud. And on that mountain bike, because of the one by gearing, you have the teeth on the chaining and the teeth on the rear pulleys that are narrow wide, and if the chain skip over, now the chain is not fitting on it right. So it was just kind of between the gears, and so the same thing, I just had to stop and try to like unmud it the best I can, and just kind of moving the chain, and then it finally got some traction. So that was the kind of the fun part of the course. But also during that first loop, so I knew that after that first run from the group where I started, I knew that I was with two other people, and one of them was in the actually older age group. It was our friend Henry. So I knew that only one guy from the same wave that we started was ahead of me. And then at one point, I see him on the side of the road fixing his bike, and I was like, oh my gosh, I may be leading the world championship right now in my age group, and I never, wish anything bad on anybody, and it's like anything can happen to me as well. So I was just like, just keep it cool, because the race, it's just starting. But it was kind of like that little moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm leading the world championship. But then I think later on I didn't really even realize that another guy from that group caught up to me and passed me, maybe better skills or better luck. But finishing the first loop, starting the second loop of the bike, and the core was completely different. So now, because of the heavy rain, it kind of diluted that stickiness of the peanut butter, and it was more of the wet mud that was just spraying everywhere. So it was no longer like filling up the tires and sticking between the frame. It was just splashing everywhere, and you just sliding left and right, and
you may as well be on ice.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was crazy, and some of the parts of the course were not rideable, so you have to get off the bike, and steep uphills with some roots, and just so slippery that it was impossible to ride a bike. But then you hop off the bike and realize that you can't even push the bike because you keep sliding with your shoes. And I didn't have the spikes that you can mount on the mountain bike shoes, is the typical, the grippy shoes, which they have good spikes or good knobs, but I was still sliding. So I'm pushing the bike. The bike is kind of on the trail, and now I'm trying to put my feet off the trail, whatever you can choose to get some traction. So I'm like,
that was exhausting.
Like this, running, this is my bike, this is me, and just kind of try to stay on. And sometimes you almost get to the top, and I was sliding back. So it was really, really fun.
And was the trail technical, like roots, rocks, rivers?
It didn't have much of the roots and rocks. There were some roots, but not too much. If it'll be dry condition, it'll be super fast course.
Like, so the weather made it
good flow and stuff. Yeah, the weather made it challenging for sure.
A lot of pitchy parts of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of climbing, a lot of torquing, a lot of segments like that. But also with that mud, it almost like it took away the ability or the opportunity where you can kind of use your biking strength to go fast, because sometimes all we were doing is just try to not fall, just like holding the bike, sliding into the turn. And then I had in that second loop, I had that my kind of like the worst crash, which it didn't look like much, but all of a sudden the bike just kind of, I was carrying good speed, and it looked almost like a straightaway, but it wasn't. It was like off camber, and just went into the turn and just completely wiped off. And as I crashed, I cramped up because the muscle kind of like the traction and the tension. And now I'm laying there in the mud.
Your leg? You were cramped in your leg?
Yeah. And I didn't cramp in my head. It was in the legs, yeah. So
your foot did it for you?
Yeah. So I could not straighten up my leg, and I was just like in the pain of the cramp as the muscle tightness, and I'm laying in the mud like a piggy. And at that point, the tracks were pretty clear, so I no longer deal with the traffic, and but I knew that somebody else can be coming from the same turn and just nail me as the same way as I crashed. So I just kind of like scoop myself to the side and just try to pick myself up, and then start riding, and realize that kind of like have those spasms in the different parts of the legs as well. So from that point, it's just like, let's just try to manage it to the finish of the bike, and then hopefully I can run.
And then you had that 18% grade or you were done with you just had the grass field coming back in.
Yeah.
So now time for the run again. And so at this point, I was able to see you on the course, and I had the tracker, trying to get the tracker up in the pouring rain. And at that time, I thought you were fourth, but there was some position changes. So
I was third.
You were third. And so at that time, when you heard your position, did you feel like you were that you had the energy to be competitive? Did you feel like you were just giving it all that you had? How did you feel? It's so different than road running, because it's not just your physical abilities, but also your skills. And one thing that I'm noticing with the trail running is that I can do okay uphill, but I just don't have great skills running downhill. So how did you feel going into the run? Were you giving it all that you had?
So, first, I want to talk about a transition.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a transition between the bike and run.
Okay, well, I was just ready for the run.
Things can happen in transition.
Well, what happened to transition?
So normally in any other triathlon or those other Xterras that I did, I usually do a flying dismount. So get the feet off the shoes before the the mount line and just hop off so I can quickly just run into transition and get into the running shoes. But because it was muddy and rainy, I decided that that's not a good idea to get all the mud on the socks and then try to get into the running shoes. So I didn't do that. I just kept the shoes on. So still did that flying type of the dismount, but with the shoes on, and ran back to the transition and realized that I just cannot undo one of my shoe, because the boa, the dial, it was just muddied up and I could not undo it. So I was like struggling with it. And then I tried to just like pull the shoe off the feet, but it would not work because the shoe was pretty secure. So that was kind of like a stumble. And I was like, am I going to, like, do I need to run with this shoe or what? But then finally I was able to undo it, and then the run started, and again started up to that hill, the same uphill that we did in that first run. And then I see you, and you told me where I was based on the tracker, but it kind of for a moment a little like messed with my head, because in my head I was like, I didn't even know about that one guy who passed me somewhere on the bike course, but in my head I still thought that like I'm in the second place, and then you told me I'm fourth, and it's like so somewhere somehow other people are ahead of me. But I was pretty confident with my running ability, but then again it's so different than running on the road, because you have to deal with the off-road. And from my past experience of training, I knew that you can actually fall. You can fall when running off-road. When you are, especially when you're tired, you just don't lift up the feet as you think that you are doing, and you can hit a rock or root and fall. So I was trying to stay, run as best as I can while I'm actually keep on running and not just picking myself up from the ground. And but you also told me that the guy ahead of me wasn't looking that great, and he wasn't that far away. And at that point the trail, we were off road, but then you can kind of see through the trees coming back down, and I saw somebody running there, and just without even knowing who it was like, okay, that's gotta be that guy. Just kind of make it up in my head.
Yep.
And so now I have some kind of target to do, and I actually passed him really soon after, and I saw the confirmation that his age on the calves, and he was moving way slower than I was. So at that point, even with the information that you gave me, that would put me on the podium. So I was kind of satisfied, but I never wanted to settle for it and keep on pushing the whole run. But it really, as the conditions were so rough and slippery,
it started raining even harder.
Yeah, it started raining harder, and again that first part, it's all uphill, and it just felt like those uphills will never end. And I kept on running and tried to kind of like run offside of the main trail, because the trail basically turned into the river of mud. So there was no longer just a mud, it was a river of mud flowing down. So I'm just kind of like a hopping from one side to another, try to find some traction. And there was that one uphill where I just couldn't run anymore. I actually included a hike. It was not too long, but at that point was the best decision, because I just couldn't run it, and my running was just kind of making the movement but not really going anywhere. So I may as well just to try to lower my heart rate a little bit, so then I can get and run again better. And I think it worked well. And then I was before the last trail segment, as was the same as your run course. There was that super steep uphill on the pavement, and I knew about it. I knew about the place. I was like, I will be strong on that. And a lot of people, they were walking it, and I ran it up there. And then I was pretty much alone for the most part of the run, because it was just that one guy that I passed, and there was nobody in sight, and I did not see anybody else until I basically finished, and then I realized that, in fact, I was in second place, and the guy who beat me, he beat me by big margin. It was like 6 minutes ahead, so there was no chance of seeing him.
And when I saw you, I tried to give you the information that I thought would be helpful in the moment. I felt like I was trying to look at people's calves, because you guys had the tattoo ages, but at that time it was also muddy. It was really hard to see it. So
as people are crashing, you kind of like washing out those tattoos.
Yeah, you kind of cleaning off too. But the information I gave you was how far down or how far behind you were from the nearest person that you could catch, because I knew that first place was from the information I had was way ahead. So I wanted to give you information to have that rabbit in front of you so that you knew it was capable. And then I also gave you information of obviously where I thought you were from the tracker. And then the last part was the bib numbers of the two people that I thought were ahead of you that you could catch, just so if you saw them, because, you know, when we're all racing, you pass somebody, but you don't really know, is this person in my age group? With the time trial starts, are they behind me? Whatever. So I just wanted to try to give you the information I thought was helpful. And then when you finish the run before the beach, the rocky section turned into a river.
Yeah, so there was a true river crossing that was like a knee deep, and I was like, "Oh, where do I go?" And it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter anymore. You know, I just didn't want to fall, so just ran through or like made my way through the river and then onto the beach, and then again you deal with the deep sand, and I knew that, you know, closer to the water, it's firmer and you can run a little bit better, but it just kept on pushing you, like those volunteers, and like pushing you towards the deep sand. So that was like, oh, okay, I have nobody else to catch and there's nobody else behind me. I'll run when where they wanted me to run. And
Yep.
Yeah, so it was like this last bit of a hard strength work before you get on the grass again. First you have to take a few steps up from the beach,
Yeah.
you know, just pretty hard, and then the last piece of the grass, and then the finish line, which was pretty awesome.
And then you ended up second in your age group for the Xterra World Championships, which was very exciting.
Yep.
Now, just to kind of wrap up here, if you could just summarize in a few ways or reasons why you love Xterra so much. Why not just go to mountain biking or just become a runner? You know, you love those two sports. You somewhat appreciate swimming, but, you know, why not just focus on one sport? Why still do triathlon, and what is it about Xterra that you love so much?
I know I really like the diversity of the three sports, so I really like triathlon, but the off-road triathlon right now appeals to me a lot more just because there's so much to it. It's not just about, you know, like I said earlier, you know, in the pre-race talk, about the watts, about your FTP, about you know, whatever metrics. It's just kind of how you can overcome these obstacles and deal with it, and how technical you are, and you don't have to be the strongest on the paper, but you just have to be strong on the day, on the type of the course. And, you know, you do courses that are completely different because there's absolutely no benchmark that you can kind of compare. You know, like in Snow Basin, the course, or starting in Alabama, the course where I qualified for the Worlds, it was really nice and fast course, bunch of single track, but good firm ground, and you know, some rocky segments, so you have to, you know, use your skills to be able to ride over the rocks. And then in Snow Basin, it was really dry, dusty, and very, very rocky, and very, very rooty, super technical. But the course layout was basically you either climb up to the high altitude, or descending for 30 minutes pretty much, or something like that. It was like half an hour, you know, brutal technical descent, and then you climb back up. And here it was just, you know, all kinds of variety of the elevation, but dealing with the sliding mud. So you really need a different skill sets for each course, or for even for each segment of that course. And you have to make the decisions in the split second what you're going to do, what line you will take, or you think that you will take this line, but now somebody all of a sudden tries to pass you, or try to get in your way, and you have to, you know, navigate and change it in the split second, and you cannot be second guessing it. So I guess that's just this excitement of that new, not just adventure, but new challenges, but in very different way than just I need to put my head down and keep on pushing.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've mentioned that in every race that you've done, you said, I cannot wait to get on my mountain bike and go play.
Yeah. But then towards the end of the mountain bike, I also cannot wait to get off and get with my feet, you know, and start running.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, and thanks for sharing all of this. Do you plan to do more Xterra races or go back to road triathlon next year?
No, absolutely. I want to do more of the off-road stuff, and, you know, integrate a lot more gravel racing, off-road triathlons, and some of the longer endurance mountain bike events. Nothing too crazy long just because I don't think my back can handle that super long stuff. But similar to what I did in that Austin Rattler in Texas, which was like 5 hours ish on a mountain bike, stuff like that. I will still mix in the road triathlons, but I really enjoy the new adventure.
All right. Thanks. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap of the Xterra World Championships.
Cheers.